Another big issue that you've heard about probably in your trips around the state is that of jobs,
Yes.
which a lot of people are concerned about. And in my way of thinking, this is another problem that the federal government has contributed greatly to with all these foreign trade agreements that we have and the offshoring of our manufacturing. And I have tracked this ever since I've been in the legislature. We've lost a lot of manufacturing jobs out of New Hampshire, and these are good paying jobs, you know,
Right.
that the average person can take, and we need those jobs back. And I've sponsored a resolution in the House for about 3 terms now, I guess, asking our congressional delegation in Washington to either get us out of NAFTA or renegotiate it so that it's some benefit to us. What would you do in Washington?
Well, first of all, I think that the first job of Washington is to get out of the way of business development and get out of the way of the ability of businesses to invest in themselves. And by that I mean the infrastructure costs we impose on business is what's driving a lot of businesses offshore. We got the second highest tax burden on our businesses in America than anywhere else in the world. We've got to look at ways to simplify the tax system and then to lower the average tax on business. Not because we want to try to pay back business, but because we know business is the engine of our economy, of our future. So why are we continuing to burden business? We've got cap and trade on the horizon that the Obama administration is pushing through this Congress. Another regulatory scheme that's going to burden our businesses. We have too many rules and regulations when it comes to OSHA, when it comes to other initiatives that the federal government has decided to intervene in and to put more burdens on the federal government, on the people at the local level through the federal government. I'd like to be a U.S. Senator that is known for the number of laws repealed and the number of regulations rolled back, not for the new ones that are created. And so I think we need to look inward here to make sure we have the best climate possible. And when we have running a deficit like we are, we're taking precious capital away from the private sector to invest and basically transferring it to China, which is now our largest creditor nation. Last time I checked, Pete, China is still called Communist China. And we're giving them huge leverage that they should not have. It's a national security issue as well as an economic issue for our country. I'm less concerned, frankly, about the treaties, and what I think once we get our house in order, then let's look at how these treaties are either working or not, and find ways to incentivize businesses to develop their new initiatives in the United States onshore, and find ways of expanding business that makes sense. There are some businesses that are going to relocate because the cost for producing, I would say, volume products is probably a lot cheaper elsewhere. But there's still a great opportunity for us to develop and innovate in terms of technology, healthcare, and medical devices and so forth, high-end jobs. But we've got to make it a climate that is conducive and allows for that kind of investment and encourages it, not discourages it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because I sponsored an R&D tax credit in the House.
You did.
And co-sponsored the one in the Senate.
Yes.
And I was on Ways and Means, and those 2 bills came together. And we worked on crafting one bill out of those, which then passed the House.
Excellent.
And that was one of, I think, the best pieces of tax relief for business that we've had in a long time in New Hampshire.
Right. Well, you know, the strategy there is the right one. Incentivize the private marketplace to seek out and put some capital in areas that are going to make a difference, as opposed to, let's say, the cap and trade approach, which is the liberal big government approach that Paul Hodes and his buddies down in Washington want, which is a punitive tax and burden to try to force businesses and individuals to live a different way, as opposed to allowing them to make their own choices. You create incentives, but you don't mandate it. Cap and trade is a top-down mandated approach. It's the wrong approach, and we need to reverse course.
Yeah, just explain this cap and trade a little bit. Not everybody may know exactly what that means.
Right. The cap and trade would ultimately be a tax burden imposed on businesses if they're not able to achieve a certain energy consumption reduction and also emission reduction.
Okay. So there's a cap on the emissions that they can let out.
And there's a way they measure it, and if you don't achieve those, you get taxed. And in fact, you continue to get taxed until you achieve that level.
Yeah.
It's punitive in nature. And it's a much more complicated than that. But that's the basic concept.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to be looking not at using the power of government to punish, but the freedom of people to seek out where there's opportunity, because people will do that.
Yeah.
People seek out opportunity. That's how we've become the greatest country in the world with the greatest economy in the world that we're killing because we're choking it.
Yeah.
We're burdening it ourselves. We're doing it to ourselves. And the financial marketplace is another one. We got a 1,500-page bill, Pete, that's going through the Congress right now to add a whole new level of bureaucracy that's only going to increase the cost of capital in America. It's not going to help to protect investors or others. It's the wrong approach. Again, a big government solution, which is not the solution for America.
Yeah. This is the bill to regulate the finance companies. And
that's correct.
Yeah.
It's called the Consumer Financial Protection Act, and this is the great irony, okay? Last year, the Democrats in Congress passed a bill to create the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission, which is supposed to report out the causes of the 2008 financial crisis we had in December of 2010. Do you think they would wait for the answers of that commission of the best and the brightest in the country before crafting a piece of legislation? Not this crowd. They don't care what the causes are. They don't care, frankly, what's best for America. They care about what's best for themselves and big government. That's why they've crafted this 1,500-page bill that's only going to hurt us, not help us. And they've done it by prejudging the situation, not by analyzing it the way you and I would in our own businesses and our own family lives.
Yeah.
Why they would do this is it just illustrates this big government approach that they have, and they can't afford to wait till the next election cycle because you know what? People of America are not going to want the same kind of leadership they're seeing. This is radicalism right now in Washington.
Yeah.